Welcome to Moodie Davitt Check-In, our quarterly video series in association with Hendrik's, a most unusual premium gin.
See, there used to be one Hendrix. Now there's another Hendrix too. And yes, it's called another Hendrix.
I'm Martin Moodie, and I'm coming to you from Hong Kong, China. Now in this series, I, along with my colleagues in the UK and Ireland, will be telling it straight. We're going to get in behind some of our biggest stories, offering not only the facts, but that critical element missing from so much travel retail industry journalism, and I call it voice. Now in each episode, we're going to zero in on stories that have stood out to us in recent weeks, and today I'm going to take you to the Republic of Korea, South Korea, and to China, the two great North Asian travel retail heartlands. South Korea is affectionately dubbed the land of the morning calm. Well, I can tell you one thing. Its travel retail market, for many years, of course, the world's biggest, has always been anything but calm. I'm amazed no one's ever made a K-drama out of it, as it has all the necessary components. Intrigue, suspense, success, disaster, big personalities for sure, and loads of money. I've been traveling to Korea every year since 1990. I love the country, the people. I do have a Korean wife after all. The culture, the food, and in its own marvelously vibrant yet volatile way, its travel, retail, and duty-free sector. Now, over those 3.5 decades, I've seen the industry evolve from a single Lotte duty-free downtown store in 1980 and a pretty awful Gimpo airport offering to the world-class luxury and beauty-driven shopping channel that you see today. Sophisticated, savvy, and often, courtesy of great Hallyu or Korean wave marketing, sexy. Now, historical context is important to what's happening today. Korean duty-free was the entry point, remember, for myriad luxury brands into the Republic's otherwise largely closed market during the 1980s and early 1990s. Heck, Louis Vuitton's arrival at Lotte Duty-Free's Seoul store in 1984 was a national headline event. Fellow luxury heavyweights Hermes and Chanel arrived soon after, again courtesy of Lotte, and pretty soon the Korean duty-free sector was a magnet, particularly for Japanese tourists, whose demand for luxury goods skyrocketed in the face of prohibitive local market prices at home. Korean duty-free just grew and grew, and while Japan's star would wane from the late 90s, two more consumer waves would propel the industry's growth well into the 21st century. First, the Koreans themselves, after the liberalization of overseas travel, and then around 2008 came the biggest wave of all, Chinese group tourism. And over the ensuing years and to this very day, Chinese customers, and one needs to define the word customer carefully, more of that in a moment, have dominated the market, or at least the downtown duty-free sector. Now pretty soon, the duty-free industry was considered the country's golden egg. 5-year licenses, too much competition, excessive commissions. Has Korea's duty-free golden egg cracked? I wrote way back in 2017. And as night follows day, in the land of the continuous turmoil, it sure did. Cash cows killed off, chickens coming home to roost, golden eggs cracking, the metaphors were flying as South Korea's duty-free sector plunged into crisis, not of revenue, but of profitability amid the devastating double blows of the 2017 THAAD anti-missile crisis between China and South Korea, remember that, which saw the collapse of Chinese group tourism, and then of course in 2020 the mother of all crises, COVID-19. Those desperate crises years saw the transformation of the Korean market from one where people bought goods they desired to ones they wanted to resell. The word daigou, both in small guest and bulk reseller form, became a critical element of travel retail parlance and sales. During COVID, some 90% of business was being done with foreign customers, almost all of the volume resold into China. The market had become a one-trick pony, actually a giant-sized horse, and something eventually had to give. And it did, when the Korean authorities, like their Hainan equivalents, cracked down on the Daigou business from 2024. It still exists, of course, but not in the rampant runaway form of days past. And there lies the rub. Korea's downtown stores had become overwhelmingly reliant on that custom. Take it away, and where do you go? Koreans mainly buy at the airport, and today many Chinese prefer to buy at department stores or from boutique stores in Seoul's buzzy streets alongside locals, rather than in the artificial environment of a duty-free store. I truly think the downtown duty-free model as we once knew it, driven by group tours, is becoming, if it isn't already, obsolete. That's what LVMH North Asia Group President Michael Shriver, a man whose views I rate very highly, told me recently. For many brands today, he said, the tourist business in department stores is larger than in the downtown duty-free sector. And I see this trend only accelerating as tourists want to enjoy a local experience, not a manufactured tourist one. He went on to say, travelers haven't stopped shopping, but they have stopped traveling to shop. Food for thought, isn't it? Shriver neatly sums up a pivotal consumer behavior shift in the wider travel retail market, I think. So as Korea's duty-free industry navigates a profoundly challenging transition, it faces the almost certain reality that the halcyon days are over. Reinvention is now the name of the game, something that's already being seen in a blitz of highly creative K-culture campaigns unveiled by leading travel retailers. In April, for example, Shinsegae Duty Free hosted an exclusive pop-up at its Myeongdong Seoul flagship store in partnership with K-beauty brand Anua and the global hit K-pop Demon Hunters. Well. Sector powerhouse Lotte Duty Free is following a similar road. In late April, Lotte Duty Free launched a new branding campaign featuring a hugely popular girl group and Lotte brand ambassadors aespa, underpinning a campaign called Trip Lotte Duty Free. The mission? For Lotte Duty Free itself to become a hotspot that global travelers just don't want to miss. So these are fascinating times. And add to all that the fact that you've got two new retailers in place at the key Incheon Airport DF1 and DF2 concessions. Lotte Duty Free back in town and Hyundai Duty Free replacing Schiller and Shinsegae, both of whom, remember, walked away from their contracts last year. So put all that together and you have a market partly in turmoil and partly, I think, in an exciting reimagination period. Korean duty free may be no stranger to crisis, but historically, remember, it's always been world leading in creativity terms. It's going to have to call on every ounce of that creativity to revive the sector in a much changed world. Can it do it? Well, let's just say it will be a fascinating watch. So from one great North Asian travel retail market to another, let's talk China, both mainland and the special administrative regions of Macau and Hong Kong. And boy, is there one talking point that jumps out above all others. And that is, of course, China Duty Free Group, CDFG, taking over the Hong Kong and Macau duty-free operations of DFS. Now, I broke that story, and I've been very close to it before and since. I've been a huge admirer of DFS down the years, from the early days of co-founders Bob Miller and Chuck Feeney selling liquor and cars to the American fleet based in the Mediterranean in the 60s, to their latter-day retail empires, built first around the Japanese consumer, of course, and then from the early 2000s, the Chinese. DFS was always just best in class. For a long time, they were also the biggest. They towered above all rivals in both airport and downtown duty-free worlds, and no one for years could live with DFS's power, standards, or allure to the Japanese. And those that tried, were quickly crushed. At one point in the late 1980s, believe it or not, around 65 to 68% of traveling Japanese shopped in DFS stores. The company was a significant contributor to Japan's $10 billion tourism deficit. Now, the company's acute understanding of their key consumer, from the 60s to the 90s, the Japanese, this century, of course, being the Chinese, has always been second to none. A few years back, I had the privilege of writing Bob Miller's biography, simply called Miller's Tale. What a tale, what a journey, or as he said, it's been a hell of a ride. And apart from the many enthralling anecdotes, the commercial success story, the wholly unlikely yin and yang relationship between Miller and Feeney, the element that stands out to me in the narrative is the obsession, the absolute obsession with being the best. Perversely though, as in the late 1990s with the Japanese, what hurt DFS and prompted the breakup of its erstwhile empire was its intense 21st century focus on one consumer group, the Chinese. Throw in the impact of COVID from 2020, the general softening of Chinese travelers' overseas spending, their growing focus on experiences rather than shopping while traveling, and intense competition, of course, from online and cross-border e-commerce. And you had the perfect storm looming. And eventually, alas, it blew into town. Make no mistake about it, the change of ownership in Macau and Hong Kong, mirrored by DFS exits and contract transfers elsewhere in the world, represents seismic change for the global travel retail landscape. For CDFG and its parent China Tourism Group Duty Free, it's simply transformational. Building on the state-controlled, publicly listed retailers' domination of an encouragingly resurgent Hainan offshore duty-free sector, myriad mainland China operations, and of course an already strong presence both on and off airport in Hong Kong and Macau. Now, CDFG is understandably excited about its future. Expect it to play the China chic card very hard, bringing the cultural heritage and contemporary Chinese brands to its global network with a lot of passion and sense of mission, including across the DFS stores. Now, I know the CDFG leadership very well, and to a man and a woman, they're determined to not only sustain the DFS legacy, but to build on it. And that is going to make for compelling viewing. From Hong Kong, I'm Martin Moodie for Moodie Davitt Check-In.